So come to a comfortable posture and we endeavor when we sit here to not need stirring. Every sort of ambition, drive, desire, aversion, insecurity, even the survival mechanisms, they propel movement, action, and stirrings in the mind. But what you're endeavoring to do for this 45, 50 minutes is to settle so much that you realize I don't have to be the one doing it. That when it's time for food, you'll go get food. When it's time to take care of your responsibilities, you'll take care of your responsibilities. When it's time to plan, you'll plan. If and when there's time to make big life changes, you'll make them. If it's time to get healthier, you'll make that choice. How will you make that choice? Because there will be this natural sort of essential thing that's rising up into consciousness to make it happen for you, compelled to act. This is very contradictory the way most people live their lives. Most people live their lives, oh, I've got this feeling, I gotta go take care of it. I have to be the one. We draw a line. The feeling, the impulse arises for something, a craving of some sort, a drive, a fear. What if I don't do it? What will happen? And then we think, oh, I need to muster the effort to make sure it does happen. This is tiring. My experience, it was quite tiring. And what's happening in these sits is that we're coming to a realization that that divide between, oh, there's this impulse to act and the actual acting itself, that those are not two things divided by you, your ego, that they are inherently one thing. But because we identify with this middle layer, more trouble, in my opinion, my experience. You're endeavoring to understand that the rising up of things is not problematic, that the fruition of things is not problematic, but the claiming of ownership, you were the doer, that's the problematic piece. I'm not telling you that. That was my experience. What do you think? How does it feel to be in charge of everything? All the things that go right and wrong in your life. You don't do it, no one will. All that's happening here is a re-identification. So instead of the impulse, essential energy, then the ego, then the action, we're pulling the I sense, what we are, behind the impulse. What you are is already here, already at peace, already quiet, and it is not the actor, but rather the observer. And you are observing from a first person perspective. So you feel internal goings on of that body mind, but those are still happening outside you. So you can think of it two ways. The internal feelings, what we call emotions and thoughts, and then actions. We usually say emotions and thoughts are internal, actions are external. But what we're endeavoring to understand is that it's either all of it is internal, emotions, thoughts, and actions, right? All of it is held inside awareness, or all of it is outside me. I am quiet stillness, and outside of me are these thoughts, emotions, and then the actions of the body. This is non-dual. There's not internal stuff and external stuff, but rather all of it is internal or all of it is external. It really becomes the same at that point. So we just sit with the idea for a moment. Maybe whichever one sort of feels more accessible. You have three things: thoughts, emotions, and actions to relate to right now. Thoughts, emotions, and actions. Can you see them as either all inside of you or all outside of you? Thoughts, emotions, and actions. All of it is inside awareness, or all of it is outside the observer. Stop drawing the line in the middle. Stop drawing the line in the observed reality. Notice how you create the ownership. You feel the thoughts and emotions, or see the thoughts, feel the emotions. Then I take ownership. That's inside me. And I may or may not act on those things. This is the ego. This is the false I. Just notice it. Notice the patterns. See if it's real for you. It's very true for me. See if it's true for you. I'm having thoughts, I'm having emotions, and I'm deciding whether I act on them. So the I is defined as this sort of casing, thoughts and emotions held within, actions on the outside, or interacting with the outside. And as you come to understanding around this, you then also endeavor to see different, to consider another vantage where all of it, thoughts, emotions, and the actions, are happening inside of you. Or, maybe a little bit easier, thoughts, emotions, and the actions are all happening outside of you. That what you are is a silent observer, witnessing these three things. Even sitting here and breathing is an action. When we do this, we lose that ownership divide. We must accept thoughts, emotions, and actions exactly as they are. It's no easy task. Just try to trust a little more. If it makes sense to you, if it makes sense, yeah, why did I draw this line, this arbitrary line? Thoughts and emotions are inside, actions are outside. Why did I draw this line of ownership? All the stuff that's trapped inside, that's the stuff you can't control, according to you. Sounds weird. Instead, the thoughts, the emotions, and the actions, not in your control. Dun dun dun. They're just happening. They're just emerging. Watch carefully. Observe diligently. Let the thoughts and emotions just arrive. And you are not in charge of deciding whether to act. That was just a story you were told and believed. You see, if we keep the divide, thoughts and emotions on the inside, actions on the outside, all the meditation can be. It's just an exercise in restraint, an exercise in discipline. forcibly trying to control yourself. Instead, the invitation here is to realize the thoughts and the emotions and the actions are all on the outside. The observer, you, observe them. You do not manipulate them, restrain them. Upon recognition of this, they all settle down unless they're necessary. Just try it to see if it's true. Endeavor to understand. You observe the thoughts and emotions and the action. As opposed to trying to constrain yourself. You're not the thinker. You aren't the feeler, the doer. You are the observer. You are the observer of this phenomena. Thoughts and emotions, the actions in the world. You are the observer of this phenomena. It is your nature to be still. Have you felt it? The desire to restrain yourself? Watching some story about that body mind, doing some action, weighing whether you should say that or do that. Tiresome, isn't it? It's basically like being afraid of yourself, afraid of what you might say, what you might do, and then trying to keep yourself from doing it, or trying to muster the courage to do it. This divide is imaginary. This divide exists because you believe it exists. Try to trust yourself. Trust yourself. Let the thoughts and emotions emerge. If it leads to action, so it does. Rather than cage yourself inside yourself, exist, exist, still like a stone. Those thoughts and emotions, that's just moss growing on the surface of the stone. Everything that arises in consciousness is not your charge. It is not your responsibility. It is rising up out of or in consciousness. You are not the steward of a tiny little piece of it. You are all of consciousness. It is rising up out of consciousness, thoughts, emotions, and actions. Release the divide. Release the sense of ownership. And you have freedom. Try to prove it to yourself. Try to realize, not because I say it, not because you've heard it somewhere, but because that is what you experience. That is what you understand. Thoughts, emotions, and actions. They emerge out of your control into this world. You do not choose your thoughts or your feelings around circumstances. We try to control our actions, rather unsuccessfully. If you move about, fine. If you get distracted, fine. You nod off for a little while, fine. You are in charge of keeping yourself still. Rather, you just have nothing to do. Realizing you have nothing to do, all thoughts become divinely conceived. All actions, the will of the universe. My body was held in place by the will of the universe. What does holding on to this division get you? This division, thoughts and emotions are inside, actions in the world are outside. What does this division get you? Freedom? Peace? Or a general low-grade sense of constant anxiety that you're willing to tolerate, able to put up with? It's time to be fed up. It's time to have had enough. Dare to make it the responsibility of the will of the universe, that you were put on a path. Your thoughts, feelings, and actions, the fruition of that path. You don't decide where you're going. It's the will of the universe. You are the silent observer, unmoved, unrestrained, independent, and free. Feel. Feel what arises as you absorb in the understanding that you are the silent observer. That body never spoke again. It's not your problem. That body never ate again. It's not your problem. Perhaps it would speak when it needs to, eat when it has to and wants to, all on its own. That those thoughts, those emotions, the body and its actions are perfectly woven into the flow of time and space. relax. If you'd like to stay in the practice, you can sign up from the call now. Otherwise, we'll do questions.